Right then, so we have a big talking point tonight from Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay,
It's your thing.
it is. Yeah, I've been thinking about this one, and I've got a lengthy answer. But basically, I want to pose a question to everybody, and the question is: you have been rewarded with the video game company of your choice. As the new CEO, where do you take the company, and what are your first decisions and/or changes?
So
Can
how
I-
how would we run our own games company?
Can I
Now, this
answer
is one
first
that already
before I look
exists.
fast?
Yes, go ahead, Ash.
I would have Nintendo. I wouldn't change anything because I'm gonna make bank no matter what. So, although, like, I agree with Squid Dude. I would localize Mother 3 and then not change anything because I'd make bank.
So we have to. This has to be an existing company that we would take over and change.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I mean, you can take over a company and rebrand it completely and make it your own. That
I suppose, yeah, you could just change it to be
do
whatever
that if
you
you
want.
wanted.
What would you do, Jack? I would take over Bungie and I would just make Destiny games
No,
forever
I
and
wouldn't.
ever and ever.
No, I wouldn't. I would take over Activision and scrap every developer they own working on Call of Duty and get the developers that are working on their own stuff again, so I can get a sequel to Transformers Fall of Cybertron, because Hyman Studios is one of their developers and they had a great ending that was a cliffhanger, and I'd love it to have a third game. Or I'd, if I took over Sony, invest in more third party, or not third party, like Sony PlayStation Studio, like indie games. So like because a lot of, at the moment, Sony are putting more money into AAA titles, so like sort of balance out the AAA money and then some more indie developers as well, just to get the indie community on Sony as well, because that could boost sales for PlayStation and, you know, give more money in turn, which would then support more indie developers and more AAA titles. Okay. But ideally Activision, so I can make them less Call of Duty and more better games like Transformers.
More better games. Nice one, Jack. Very concise. Yeah. Bill.
Right. So obviously I've been thinking about this quite a lot. So mine would be Sega.
I was going to say Sega.
Too late now. You should have gone first.
It's all right. I think Emily said Sega in the chat actually.
Yeah, I think
specifically. Emily said she wanted to perform CPR on Sega.
I mentioned AAA games, which means that's another thing off the list.
I think Sega has got so much potential, but the direction they take just seems to always make my head scratch. So what I would like to do is, first of all, try and arrange a partnership with Nintendo as a first-party developer, for purely the reason that I feel that mascot games and franchises do the best on Nintendo's platforms.
Sorry, I would not agree with you. Like, if I owned Nintendo, I'd be like, no, run Sega into the ground.
Bring the console war back. It was the best time. It was the best time video games ever had, was that 90s console war. Obviously, Ash doesn't remember that at all because, you know, she was dead at the time.
She wasn't born. She wasn't. This wasn't the case that she was dead.
The opposite of alive, isn't it?
No
offense, Ash. Oh my god.
Die then go alive.
Don't worry, I'll carry on. I have to obviously convince the new CEO of Nintendo that Sega is a good purchase. So I have to do that. Ash, do you need a minute?
John, how dare you? That's so mean.
Right, as I was saying, so I do think, yeah, that's right, that's a big F. I do think franchises do the best on Nintendo's platforms, and I know there's people out there that says, well, they've already gone back and done all the franchise things. They're doing Alex Kidd, they've done Streets of Rage, Panzer Dragoon, but the remakes are great, and there's a thing about numbered sequels that are fantastic for established fans, but Sega are losing a lot of those. So I don't think you should keep numbering or saying they're remakes because you're trying to get more interest on your product that was there. So my tact would be more like the New 52 reboot, for what they did for DC Comics, and basically say, okay, I'm going to take these franchises, going to act like they never had any history, and re-release them for a new audience, reintroduce them to new fans, acting like they are new IPs under a new banner. So I don't alienate any old people, any new fans. Then, oh, this is a game that they've updated, not interested. They won't know that necessarily. And also that will stop this whole yelling out to old fans saying, "Hi guys, do you remember us? We're Sega. We're going to do that thing from 15 years ago that you've been asking us to do all this time. Now we're doing it. Come back." And it's just really, really sort of embarrassing that they do that. And once you've actually established those new franchises on Nintendo's banner, then I think all bets are off, because then you can take those characters and put them into Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, the sports games, and you can chuck all these kind of franchises under one roof. Also, with the old games, you can stick the retro consoles on there. So you've got the Mega Drives and the Dreamcast and things like that. They can do the NES, SNES, and N64 kind of online streaming bits and pieces they currently do with the Switch. But the thing I think would be really exciting about it is just how they modernize the games. So like what Breath of the Wild did with Zelda and what Mario did with Mario Odyssey, you could do that with a lot of Sega's franchises and get really new life out of them. Such, for example, Jet Set Radio could be an open world game. Crazy Taxi could be like a Burnout style type game. Burning Rangers could be roguelike. Choo Choo Rocket Battle Royale, 100 versus type thing. All of those things can be sort of released with this new kind of brush and really sort of go to town with it. But I do think they should just remake Skies of Arcadia, because that was good and everyone needs to play that. But yeah, that's what I do. I'd take that with Sega.
Okay. I would just have like pie in the sky ideas, really. I would take over some like one of the best, in terms of storytellers and pushing technology and stuff. I would take charge of Naughty Dog, I think. But instead of just working on exclusives for Sony, I would basically sell myself out everywhere. And so I would have infinite money, obviously, in this theoretical world. But
Jack,
I would... Sorry, Jack?
You have to talk to me. If I owned Sony, you'd have to talk to me about that.
Well, that's fine. That would be brilliant, Jack, because we'd be able to come to some fantastic arrangements, wouldn't we? Because we'd be on the same page. But what I'm saying is I would be Naughty Dog, but I would take on new projects. Instead of doing 10 years on Uncharted and spending 7 years making 2 Last of Us games, I would like to do my own take on other properties. Like how Bill said, if you had the money and development, you could really expand on like a classic Sega arcade game and make it into some gigantic sprawling RPG. I would take something along the lines of, say, like a Zelda game, but do it in the style of a story-based epic that Naughty Dog generally does quite well. That's what I would like to see. I would also really like to see a proper grown-up, gritty and dark Mario title somehow. So whichever company could get that made, that's what I'd like to see.
That'd be cool. Like Mario, but 18 rated.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be, I'm not talking like Mario in Mortal Kombat or anything like that. I just mean a realistic Mario. A realistic Mario. Just
where
to
he's
see
an
what
actual
like.
plumber instead of And
Ash just looks like she's in perpetual shock.
No, I was just thinking that I would like to change what I would say, and I would agree with Bengus that I would take over Rockstar so that I could have Bully 2, because Bully's one of my favourite games.
Oh yeah! Oh, I didn't even think of Rockstar. Damn it! Pac-Man 99 is a thing. We've now got another Battle Royale, now that they've sacked off the Mario 35th anniversary, Mario 35, whatever it's called. That's all gone, because now we've got Pac-Man 99, where you basically play Pac-Man for as long as you can to be the last one still playing Pac-Man. With that in mind, what other games could work with the Battle Royale treatment?
Can I go first? Because I have quite a creative answer.
Please do, Ash. I was kind of banking on you having a good answer on this one, to be fair, because I didn't really think of much.
So, I personally think that anything could work with a battle royale, because you just do a battle royale mode and take it, put it like as an extra mode. But what I really want from a battle royale game is a battle royale game. So, you know the film Battle Royale, where it's the Japanese film? I want that, but I want it procedurally generated. So you play a procedurally generated character who gets a procedurally generated backpack that may or may not be helpful. You go into a procedurally generated area, and each time, it's like a point and click adventure. So each time you move to a new area, you might like encounter a person, you might encounter like a danger, you might encounter a supply chest, stuff like that. I want that as a battle royale game, and I don't care if it is 99 players or it's one person and it's not even a real battle royale, it's a single player point and click adventure. I think that would be so cool because it's one of my favorite films, and I think it would translate really well to procedural generation like that, as like a bit of a roguelike as well. So yeah, there we go. That was my creative answer.
I quite like that idea, Ash, but I also like, I mean, you said point and click, but I like the idea of it being quite a slow-paced game, where instead of you getting a million guns and things and you can shoot people from anywhere, I want there to be, like in the film, where there's like a selection of weapons, and basically you all start and you have to run and pick up your weapon, and then that's
Hunger Games.
Yeah,
Battle Royale, they all got given a backpack that may or may not have had a good weapon. Some people got shotguns.
Yeah, so you have like a fixed thing. So like
Yeah.
you have like a fixed thing, and that is your weapon for the game. But it's all going to be like stealthy, and you haven't got guns that will like do magic things. You've just got like a knife, or you have to go and steal a weapon from someone else, or something like that. So it's like a really tense, slow-paced one where you have to properly hide out. That sounds brilliant. Anybody else have any suggestions for a battle royale game?
No, I mean, I stick to Apex and Warzone for me. I'm not really too keen on like every game getting a battle royale mode, because I think Fortnite sort of made it a very not unlikable, but like when Fortnite was, because obviously the first battle royale properly was PUBG, and then Fortnite came out, and then like Activision jumped on it and they had Blackout and then Warzone, which is successful, and then Respawn, Apex Legends, I think is the best battle royale in my opinion, because I love that game. But I don't think every game needs a battle royale treatment. I think it's a certain genre that fits certain games. Like Apex have done well, Warzone's doing great, PUBG I think might still be popular, I'm not too sure. But I don't think every game should have battle royale, because then the genre will become so saturated.
Imagine if your favourite game that had absolutely nothing to do with a battle royale suddenly had a battle royale game made for it, like Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, but it's optional. Like no one. It comes back to the whole easy mode on Dark Souls. No one's forcing you to play it.
I know, but I don't like it. I don't like it. There's a Final Fantasy VII battle royale.
You're gonna have to play it because it's Tetsuya Nomura and there will be canon content in it.
This is what I mean. I don't want to. I don't want to have to experience new stuff by playing this type of game.
But for something like Siege, just to use Jack's example that we were talking about, Siege, which is one of those games where you could easily attach a battle royale to it as just a separate mode, in much the same way as Call of Duty didn't have a battle royale until it became popular, and they just attached it as a second mode.
I disagree. I don't think Siege would work as a battle royale, because Siege is such a tactical game and it requires that 6v6 thing. I think adding, let's say they have the 99 people, it doesn't become a tactical game anymore. It just becomes another FPS with another battle royale. Having Siege the way it is, it works because it's it's a tactical shooter rather than a battle royale. Adding the battle royale, I think, would ruin the way Siege plays and the way it works.
But it would be a battle royale mode. It wouldn't be in replacement of what Siege is. Because, for example, you can literally, I think you can attach a battle royale to almost any game.
It's basically just like speedruns, isn't it? You can play any game as a speedrun. That's basically what Mario 35 is, isn't it?
You can do things like Puyo Puyo, Dr. Mario, they can all be battle royales. You could, if you so wished, do a battle royale of like Persona, and you just, get a Persona and go and fight 99 other people that have a Persona. It's possible. it doesn't mean it's a good idea, and it doesn't mean that I want it to happen, but I think it's a thing that could happen.
Bill, I know that you are a massive Fortnite fan. What games do you think could be made into a Battle Royale?
Yeah, I'm a huge Fortnite fan. I've never actually played it. I don't know much about it, to be fair.
You're not missing out, Bill, anymore. Like, you're not missing out.
I've actually got 3 games that I wouldn't mind seeing. The first one I think is just a matter of time, because it's one of the companies is going to jump on it, which is a fighting game. Whether it's be Mortal Kombat, whether it be Street Fighter, whether it be anybody, they're bound to do it eventually, where they just literally say, right, you win 1 round, and then you fight a random person until there's only like 1 person left.
Just like a massive pool.
Yeah, like 99 people. You all have 1 round each. And then when you win your round, you go on to the next person. I don't know if you carry your life over or something. I'm not too sure.
It has to be like a survival mode thing. Otherwise, it's just like a tournament.
Well,
something like that.
It would be... Sorry. They could do it like Fall Guys. So they have a certain number of people who get through in every round. Which means you not only have to be skilled at the game, you have to be fast.
Yeah, I think Smash Brothers would probably lend itself better to it, but... I'd prefer it in something like Mortal Kombat, Guilty Gear, or Street Fighter, because I just think that would be more tactful with how you would have a one-on-one fight and get someone left. I don't know the admin behind it, but I think it's just a matter of time before that happens. The other one might surprise people who know me. I actually think a Battle Royale Minecraft would be really cool.
Minecraft Hunger Games sort of already exists.
Yeah, I was thinking of saying Minecraft. That was going to be really cool.
I did mention
it's already been done then, apparently. Okay.
Yeah, Minecraft Hunger Games was popular. Like, I think it still is, but it's been popular for years. Like, I loved Minecraft.
99 people into a Minecraft world, and then you have to go quickly hunting to find stuff.
Essentially, it's Hunger Games. Yeah, it's Hunger Games in Minecraft.
The last one is like a Command and Conquer Warcraft 3 kind of strategy game, where where you have to build up an army. Make the map big enough, drop 99 people into it, and then you're building up armies, but there's only a limited amount of resources, so you're going to lose some of the smaller armies quickly, but then do you team up with like fellow armies to take out the one big army that managed to build up, or that just sounds interesting to me.
It's Total War, but with a massive map. Yeah, that sounds alright.
Yeah, something like that.
Kisra said WarioWare. That would be a great one.
That's been popular online, yeah.
That would be a great one. And Hyconic had a really good one as well. Brain Training Battle Royale. That would be quite cool. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Right. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next question. This question comes from Bill. And Bill says, what's best? A good game with a bad story or a bad game with a good story?
See, Bill, are you asking, is that good gameplay? Or is it like a good game, as in like... So, in terms of bad game, good game, but bad story. So obviously, bad story, good story, that's, black and white, plain and simple. But with good game, bad game, is that bad gameplay? Is that bad mechanics? Is it bad art style, stuff like that?
I'm just gonna jump in here and say that personally, I don't think a game with a bad story can be classed as a good game, but that's just me.
I agree with Ash. You can't really have a good game with a bad story because it won't get people hooked. Like, a lot of games...
You can have a good game with no story.
Yeah, no, you can. But I think if it's a story-driven game and the story is bad, people won't play it.
The Gears of War story was pretty poor.
That has a decent fan base, but like I'm not really. I've only played Gears of War 4, and it was all right.
I think there's a lot of stories that didn't put it at the forefront or had it in the first in the franchise. I don't think the Halo story is a particularly good one because they didn't flesh it out very much. I don't think Gears of War is a particularly good one with a story, but the game's pretty good. You look at Mario, you look at Sonic, you look at all of those kind of games. People still play them, but the stories are pretty shocking in those.
The thing is, I think it depends on genre, because you don't go into a platform game like Mario expecting a really well written, well thought out, story that hits all of the beats. You just expect Bowser has taken Peach Mario's gonna go and save Peach.
You know what, though? I would love to play a Mario game that is not done in the Nintendo cartoony way. I would like to have a proper 18 rated Mario where he's like got proper human proportions as an actual human, fully performance captured Last of Us 2 kind of presentation. Proper serious, deep, dark Mario story. Harrowing tales of kidnap and torture in the castle. Oh man, that'd be brilliant. I would pay money for that.
And Koopas left, right, and centre. You know, Mario's like
exactly. You'd still have all your fantasy elements and everything, wouldn't you? He's like when he gets his fire weapons and stuff, he'll literally be burning people alive, and the Koopas will be screaming in agony. Oh man, it'd be brilliant.
You got some trauma to work through, John. Are you all right there?
Clearly, I have. It's also because I'm just trying to talk over the fact that I don't really have an answer for the question. But personally,
I do if you need time to think.
No, my final thought on the subject is the story is great, but gameplay trumps all. Ash.
I disagree.
I'm with you. The reason I thought this question was because of what my experience with Persona 5 was. Persona 5 has a tremendously good story with great characters, and it was, it took time to actually expand on all the elements of the story in the world, but I just didn't, because the gameplay didn't grab me, I couldn't get through it. So it made me sort of question what I see in a game. If the gameplay isn't there, then I can play some trash games. If story wise, if the gameplay is good, but the other way around, it can have the best story in the world, but if the gameplay just isn't strong enough, it doesn't grip me. So I was just curious to see what you guys thought.
I disagree. I think I have had so many like janky, obnoxiously bad gameplay games saved by the story. Specifically games that have a story. I'm not saying like Mario or anything like that, and I'm not saying that every single game needs to have a story to be a good game, because I know there are people out there that are going to take what I'm saying and be like, Ash thinks Mario should have a story and that's why it's a bad game. No, okay? Right? What I'm saying is like, Metal Gear Solid has some really obnoxiously difficult gameplay. It has some really janky moments. The Nikita missile is just not fun, that section, but the story saved it. And I think games like a lot of Kojima games, weirdly enough, but games like Death Stranding, where the gameplay is very slow, and it was saved by having a good story. And I think personally, as Jack says, it's personal preference. If a story doesn't hook me, provided it's a game that has a story, if a story doesn't hook me, the gameplay could be the most perfect gameplay in the world, but I am literally going to be dreading the next cutscene, the next bit of story related stuff, because if it's boring or it's badly written or whatever, I'm just gonna be like, I'm not into it, and I'm not gonna keep playing. I'm not one of those people that will force myself to play a game I'm not enjoying. So if I'm not enjoying the story, no matter how good the gameplay is, I'm not gonna keep playing it, because a massive chunk of it is, not enjoyable to me.
Right, next question is, what video games have got you really emotional, and why? I have an easy answer for this. Final Fantasy VII, when Aerith dies, I cried. It's the only time I've ever shed a tear while playing a video game.
Is it just that one bit, though, in that whole game? Or is there other parts that got you as well?
Overall, as an overall experience, it's probably the most emotional that I've felt throughout a game, for how it was at the time. Playing it now, you wouldn't get the same sort of reaction at all.
I don't mean it has your emotional attachment to it changed. What I mean is, do you remember playing through that? Everyone says Aerith dying is like the heart-wrenching memory. There's some great parts in there, like when Barrett meets his best friend and you find out about their backstory and all that kind of stuff. Was there other moments in that game that got you emotional just besides Aerith?
The entire game from start to finish got me at the time. I was just at a point in my teenage years where it just resonated with me on so many different levels. But obviously, as cliche as it is to say it, that thing at the end of disc 1 was that was the one defining moment, I would say, that made me think, oh my god, video games are utterly incredible, and you don't get this experience with any other medium.
Cool.
Not quite as heavily emotional, but sometimes if I finish a really good game and I get to the end and the credits start to roll, I do like to have like a moment of like reflection while the credits are going, and I'll make myself sit there and watch the credits to show my appreciation to the creators of the game. So something like the first Last of Us, I got to the end of that and it's like, oh my god, that was an incredible experience. And so you have that sort of gratitude and appreciation for it. So there's my examples.
Cool.
I came at this from a different angle. I am a cold and heartless witch who doesn't cry at video games, and I don't get the same sort of emotional response as I do to like books, because I just don't find video games as immersive as books. So I came at this with anger is an emotion, and Soulsborne games make me ridiculously angry. So that's what I have chosen.
Yeah, no, I get that.
That's a good answer, Jack.
I like with that.
I have a few. There's a few.
Sorry, Ash. Your mug. Is that Mumbra's logo from Thundercats?
It's a Thundercats mug.
Oh my god! Where did you get that? Can I get one?
Oh, where did you get your Thundercats mug from? It was like years ago, wasn't it? It's Alex's. He got it years ago. It's so old that it's supposed to be heat changing, but the heat changing doesn't work anymore.
I mean, if it's no good to I'll buy it off him.
I'm literally using it, John.
Damn it. Okay. Carry on. Jack,
yes,
what were you going to say, Jack?
There's been a few. RDR2 was quite I didn't cry, but it was quite an emotional game, like the ending, because I went with good Arthur. So I tried to be as nice as I could as Arthur. That was a really great game to play. Like, I got it for my birthday last year and loved it. Both Last of Us's. I cried several times in Last of Us 2.
Wow.
Yeah,
I just cried out of frustration for it just being terrible.
I was quite immersed in that game. I played both games with headphones and just focused on them, and I was just like immersed in both. Spider-Man PS4. That's the final one. Like, that game is probably one of the best stories I've ever played in a game ever. I love Spider-Man as a character. Like, I've watched films, I've watched some of the animated shows, and like I've played other Spider-Man games, but Spider-Man PS4 is like one of the best stories I've ever played.
Bill, last person. Have you got emotional at any particular games?
Yeah, I have, actually. There's a certain point in my life, I think when I was about 26, where emotion suddenly changed for me, where I got a lot more sentimental as I got older, where I tackled this question from the beginning, where I just got angry at games. So the earliest memory I remember of getting angry was when I completed Super Mario Bros. 2 and realised it was a dream and I couldn't let it go, and it ate me up for ages. I don't know why, but I literally, there's I don't know, 8 to 11-year-old me, I can't remember when I completed it now, and I just went down and I looked at my mum, chucked the game at the table where she was sitting and said, "This is rubbish, I went for all this and it was a dream." And so, yeah, that's really
hated that.
I don't know why.
That's amazing.
And then there was things like Majora's Mask, which, yeah, there you go, big F. Then there was Majora's Mask, which was very much about I'd interacted with all of these characters. So to see the end of their story was very unique for me back then, when you didn't really sort of touch on them again. But the big ones, everyone's loving that story. But the big ones were Final Fantasy IX. I saw some people mention that in the chat, when the ending of that game really got me. Mass Effect at the end of the whole story, because I thought that was really good. Max Payne 2, if anyone's played that, Max Payne 2 really got me as well, because I thought that was quite a touching ending. Grandia 2, yeah, there we go.
It's the emotional soundtrack to Bill's gaming life. I like it.
Well, everybody got hit by Final Fantasy VII, but I played Grandia 2 first, and there's a lot of very similar story beats in Grandia 2, so that was my Final Fantasy VII. And I have to disagree with the two of you about Last of Us 2 and the guys in the chat. I actually thought that was a very well written game, and I really enjoy it.
I think it's a very well written game. Like, I've been watching a load of video essays on it, and I want to replay the games just so I have more fun, because I did enjoy them. I think they were both well written, and there's a lot more there than people think there is.
I think it was I thought that Last of Us 2 was really good, but it was definitely written with the intention of creating discussion, and it did feel like it was there to just say, we've made a game that wants to touch on certain subjects because we're all edgy and modern and we want to discuss these particular topics and put them into a game. I don't think it was because somebody had this creative vision of that particular story. It felt like a very manufactured story. But the game itself overall was very good. However,
the first one was definitely unique, but I think they sort of capitalized on what made this first one.
It's just video game business. Hello to Skinabi in the chat. Thank you for joining. Just loosely, just for a moment, just to stick around with The Last of Us. The rumor is that the first Last of Us is getting a remake from the PS3, which has already been remastered on the PS4, and now it's coming to PS5. Do we need a remake of the original Last of Us this soon?
No, we don't.
No,
we don't.
It is the world's biggest cash grab. Sorry, I'm going to rant because this is remakes and remasters.
Go for it,
we all know how much I hate
You can handle this question on your own then, Ash. Go for it.
So, this is the most pointless remake that I have ever heard of. I mentioned this on the Discord. I absolutely think it is the world's biggest cash grab, and basically what it is they've gone, Last of Us is really popular right now. The sequel did really well. The first game was really, really popular. We're getting a TV series. I know what we'll do. I know that we released our game on the PS3. I know that we remastered it for the PS4, and I know that you can play the PS4 on the PS5. So, instead of simply patching it to make it look better on the PS5, let's remake it. But what are they going to do, really? Are they going to completely remake it with completely different motion capture? Nah. Or are they just going to up-res everything, put some ray tracing in, because that's the buzzword of the generation, and just throw it out there, charging anywhere between, £60 to £70 because it's a next-gen game? It's ridiculous. No, it does not need a remake at all.
It won't change the gameplay, therefore there's no point.
It won't. Yeah,
it won't improve the gameplay. I mean, improve the graphics, great, yeah, whatever, but it won't make the game itself better.
I think there's only two things that really justify a game being remade or remastered or re-released, and that is if it was only available in a very limited way. So things like Demon's Souls, which were only available on the PS3, fair enough, do your remake on the new console, just don't, charge people like it's a brand new game that's never been released before. Or
and keep all the crappy camera angle stuff.
Or alternatively, if it's an older game that is on a console that is now defunct, and it's an and, not an or, and it is a popular nostalgic choice, things like the old Pokemon games, but you're gonna update them for the modern age. Don't just be like, I've up-resed it, everything's pretty now, but it's still janky AF like it was on the Game Boy. If something is being changed, then sure, do your remake. I do not need a remake of a game that came out 2 console generations ago that I can play on my current PS5. Sorry, I'll stop. It's just making me angry.
The only thing I'll say is I don't know what they're doing. So I don't know what they're actually doing with the game, so I can't really comment on what they're doing. But just to sort of go on the basis and try to be positive about it, there's a lot they could do to the game in Last of Us. As good as the story was, the environments, for the most part, were pretty bland. So there's a lot of extra game they could put in to actually make the game as good as some other third-person shooters out there. The other thing is I hold judgment, because after things like the Snyder Cut and bits and pieces like that, where we don't really know what we get until we get it, and then you get it, and then some people like it, some people don't. If they did the equivalent to the Snyder Cut with Last of Us 1 and expanded all these extra stories and gave you all these new areas to investigate and have a look at, maybe it might be worth it. but I think the remake HD versions have got such a bad rap in the PlayStation, especially where they literally just up the graphics and then chuck it out again. We are almost expecting it to be like that. Maybe there's a chance, if the whole team have been working on it for a little while, that it might be a little bit more than what we expect. So we'll see.
I like that take, especially as someone who loved the Snyder Cut.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm being hopeful, Ash. I know, I can see. I guarantee, if I was a betting man, I would actually put money on what you've said is going to be the remake. I guarantee it. I'm not being naive. I honestly think you're probably more likely to be right.
I just personally think things like the Snyder Cut, and I hate to say it, but like bowing down to fandom demand, I just think it sets a really bad precedent. Things like the Snyder Cut, okay, yes, it's probably a really good film. It's probably exactly what a lot of DC fans wanted. And then things like changing the way Sonic looked in the Sonic movie. Yes, that was for the best, but it was because of fandom demand, and also like releasing Cyberpunk early because the fandom were very, very disgustingly sending death threats to the devs. And I think it just sets a bad precedent of, if the fandom is loud enough and nasty enough, they'll get what they want, which is why I don't agree with things like the Snyder Cut, and I don't agree necessarily with yelling so much at devs that you get what you want.
No, you're right. Yeah, absolutely, you're right. Can't disagree with anything you've said. But I think with this case, they've kind of done it and no one's asked for it. This is a remake no one asked for.
Yeah, this is kind of
right. This is just everyone's gone.
But like, I think it's purely like, oh, the game's big hits for most fans. Let's try and make some more money. And I think looking at it could go either ways. The way Bill said or the way you said. Now, if it goes the way Bill said, I will probably get it. But if it goes the way you said, Ash, probably not. But yeah, if they like expand on, if they do it from the ground up, and it's like, you know, they get Troy Baker back in, they get Ashley Johnson back in.
It's the same game.
Do it. They won't do it. There's a lot of improvements they can make to that game. I did not think Last of Us. I'm going to upset Hyconic because I've seen Hyconic raging in the chat over there. I didn't think Last of Us 1 was all that. I thought it was very good, but I didn't think it was like the greatest game ever. I actually preferred Last of Us 2. I'll expect all the hate coming Hyconic in the Discord.
5, 4.
I agree, Bill.
There's a delay. I'll go quickly before he starts. But yeah, there's a lot of improvements they could make in the gameplay of both Last of Us 1 and 2. And if they went that angle, then it'd be worth it. But I do think Ash is right on this one.
I just want to address something that Hyconic has said, actually, about Balan Wonderworld not being delayed, and it should have been. It's, like, I think listening to feedback from a beta or a demo is very different to the fandom essentially screaming and saying, oh, we want the Snyder Cut, blah, blah, blah. And you make a good point that the Sonic movie would have flopped if they hadn't changed it. I'm not saying that the Sonic movie didn't need, like, that update.
The Sonic movie was too good. The Sonic movie came out fine, and fine's no good. I wanted the Sonic movie to either be incredible, or I wanted it to be a complete car crash. And
what can they do? What can they do to make Sonic an incredible movie? It's not going to be.
Just make a decent game to base it on, for starters.
Yeah, it's fine as it was.
I'm certain Jim Carrey's back really hurts from carrying the whole thing.
Yeah, he probably does.
It was very enjoyable, and I will probably go and see the second one.
I will.
Can I add to the whole sort of? I agree, like fandom stuff. The way certain fans approached it, like with Cyberpunk, wasn't great. But like, I'm part of the like. There's a lot of tweets I've been circling because a lot of people are saying restore the Snyderverse. So instead of, because of how good Snyder Cut was, a lot of people think that fans are trying to get Warner Brothers to not make other stuff, whereas fans are saying make other stuff, but also let Snyder complete his work. In like, I think a lot, especially like, I'm trying to be as respectful as I can because, you know, they're all human beings at the end of the day. But I think certain ways fans go about it isn't great, and I think some people can be quite cruel and quite mean when it comes to getting what they want. But I think other fans, you know, it's like you look at when developers turn stuff off for server maintenance. people and they like extend it. You know, have tweets I've seen when people are like, "For fuck's sake, I wanted to play tonight. No, I can't go." It's just like, it's.
Was one of them people you, Jack?
Well, that's just bad planning on the case of the devs, because for like Final Fantasy 14, it's announced in advance. It'll be, there's maintenance on this day, don't try and play.
No, it's announced. It's just like, even like with Bungie, a lot of the time they'll like extend the maintenance by like several hours. And me and my mates will be like, "Oh, okay, cool, we'll just play something else." But like,
how about that? How about if they're going to put your favourite game down for an hour, go outside.
Go for a walk.
Yeah, but Bill, a lot of the times
Get
when
some
it's
vitamin D.
like 9 PM.
Right, let's move on. We're going way over time. We've got one more question left, which is a ridiculously long question. Would anybody like to read out Hyconic's question?
I will. I'll do it.
Go on then, Jack. Because this will make perfect sense.
Have you guys ever discussed what makes an RPG game, as in terms of genre? So he mentioned that Link's Awakening isn't an RPG video game, and apparently people disagree. He was kind of baffled, as certain people have moved on thinking Zelda is an RPG, to calling it an action-adventure game. Not only that, but the argument that any game with character progression is clearly an RPG came up. He would say that RPG elements shouldn't be categorized as RPGs. So he mentioned, would you call Assassin's Creed an RPG in terms of genre? Someone stepped in and basically said, you're wrong. Of course, Assassin's Creed is an RPG, so is Zelda.
Can I go first? Because I took notes.
What makes an RPG an RPG?
Yeah, essentially.
In a sense,
Hyconic, you could have literally asked your question in about 6 words.
Can I go first?
Go ahead.
I've made notes. So, first things first, officially speaking, I did some research. Officially speaking, the Legend of Zelda series as a whole is classed as an action-adventure series. It's not an RPG, officially speaking. So the next time someone says to me, "Oh, Ash, you should like Breath of the Wild because you love RPGs," I have that in the tank to be like, no. But also, the actual definition for an RPG, especially in Japan, is any game where you play a role. It's quite literally role-playing game.
Yeah.
However, that then means that most games where you play a character are role-playing games. It just so happens that much like FPS, which really isn't necessarily a genre, more a collection of tropes and mechanics that make up FPS games, because you wouldn't necessarily say, if you took away the FPS, you wouldn't say that Doom and Call of Duty are the same genre of game. One is a war game, one is a science fiction game. So there are games that would be classed as role-playing games because you play a character, but they don't have the elements that most people classically associate with role-playing games, which are things like character progression, choices in the story, experience points, leveling up, numbers getting bigger. And I think colloquially that is what has been known as an RPG for so long, because it dates all the way back to tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons, for example. So a lot of things that are associated with Dungeons and Dragons that appear in games as the RPG elements get called RPGs, whereas realistically speaking, Persona, for example, please don't hate me for this, Hyconic, Persona isn't necessarily a traditional RPG because it doesn't exactly have a character, like a skill tree. Instead you upgrade your personas, but there's a lot of choice. But as I said, it's a role-playing game based on the fact that you play a character. So essentially what I'm saying is that any game that you play a character is a role-playing game, but it also has to have the elements of a role-playing game that are classically associated with the genre. RPG shouldn't be a genre, it's a game system.
I was going to say, yeah, I'd agree. I don't think RPG is a genre anymore. I think because there's so many games that take that element into them now that it's become a mechanic or like a form of gameplay rather than a genre.
The definitions of the genre, I don't think there is like an official dictionary or there's not an official definition for what an RPG is.
Yes, there is. it's a role-playing game. It is a game where you play a role.
But what Ash said is completely true in that, yes, in just about every single game, you play a role in certain contexts, but there are certain traditional, classic gameplay mechanics that would lend it to being defined as an RPG as opposed to an adventure game or, you know, a level building game or whatever. But obviously it harks back to the olden days, back when me and Bill played games, where technology limited the types of games that you could do, which obviously gave birth to things like turn-based combat and stuff like that, evolving from tabletop games, as Ash said. And obviously those mechanics, you don't now need to do a turn-based thing for an RPG combat. You can do that in real time now because the technology allows for it. So things like the Final Fantasy VII, the original, you would say is an RPG, whereas the remake is more of an action-adventure, but it's got level-building elements, but they don't make a huge difference to the game. So I think it really comes down to how you personally view what an RPG is, really. As Hyconic literally just says, it was clear in the 80s and 90s, but with so many games now taking mechanics from RPGs, it makes deciding what game's an RPG more difficult. So yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah. It's a change in the times. So first of all, I think action adventure has probably become the new RPG defining genre, where if you don't know what to call it and it's got aspects of everything, you tend to call it an action adventure game. But it goes back to some of the documentaries you can watch on things like Netflix and stuff online, where the definition of an RPG used to be exactly Dungeons and Dragons, a tabletop board game. It needed two aspects: you deciding how you play a character, and also dice rolling elements deciding on how outcomes play out. And I think the dispute about Zelda is that when the very first Zelda games came out, there was a lot more of that defining in there. So you played Link. Link didn't speak. He didn't have any characteristics, and he still doesn't. So therefore, you kind of put your own personality on Link to be who you want him to be. You can choose which weapons he uses. You can choose what order you do things in, what you specialize in. So there's that aspect of it. But the bit that's kind of gone away that for me takes it away from RPGs is the dice rolling element. When you first started your original Zeldas, the dice rolling element was a lot of the enemies was erratic and random on how they attacked you, and that was kind of the dice roll. You don't have that anymore because there's AI controlled boss battles and segments that are predetermined, which sort of get a lot of that out of the way. That's why when you look at things like Final Fantasy, who's upset in the chat?
I think that's just Iconic teaching Nick how the channel points work. Nick was asking how are the points redeemed, and they should be given in Bitcoin, but no, Dogecoin is where it's at. Carry on, Bill.
No, I was just saying. So yeah, a lot of the traditional RPGs like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, those kind of things, they still heavily based on that dice roll element, where it's not just you choosing a character and how you play as it, but also what the outcome is. Are you going to get a critical hit? Are you going to get death and it's going to actually affect you? Will you get poisoned on this particular turn? And that's where it's all come from. But very much like what shoot 'em ups became shmups, and what bullet hells are now a different genre as well. When you say shoot 'em up, you don't think of the little robot, little spaceship flying around shooting aliens anymore in the kind of an overhead.
Yeah, you think first-person shooter is a shooter now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a third-person shooter. So it's moved forward and it's evolved into something else. But for me, if you wanted my opinion, I'd say if it still involves dice rolling to determine its main combat and outcomes of something to some degree, and you have stats where you can be a different character to somebody else by determining, do you have more intelligence over, magic, over melee combat, and do you use this item rather than this item? That's a more traditional RPG for me. So I would say Zelda it is an action adventure, but please can somebody come up with something different than action adventure, because so many are under that genre. It's just overused. But it gets the last part, because I know we're overrunning, John, sorry. The last part is it when do you stop? I find music very difficult to sort of talk about the way I do about games, because there's just so many genres and I can't keep up. and I can never define and talk about what kind of music I want. When I talk to someone who does, there's so many different genres of music. Can we just say it's a good game or a bad game, right?
I have such a very
no more genres. It's just good or bad.